This is Indonesia. It is the fourth most populous country in the world, with massive cities like Bandung, Surabaya, and the largest city in the world, Jakarta. But Indonesia is home to much more than just cities. This is Mount Merapi. If you didn't know any better, you would think it's just another beautiful Indonesian mountain. But as you might have guessed, this is an active stratovolcano capable of incinerating everything beneath it in less than 30 minutes. Welcome to Sedayu, a village located at the base of Mount Merapi. Sedayu's economy is driven partly by tourism and mostly by rice. Massive fields, called paddies, span across the base of the mountain. Many of these farmers are poor, with what little land they have being passed down from generation to generation. Most of these farmers live in concrete bungalows near the base of the mountain. Some have running water, which is considered a luxury in most rural villages. But even though these houses are adequate for everyday life, they would be completely wrecked if the volcano looming outside ever erupted. The people of Sedayu knew this. Merapi wasn't just a normal volcano, it was a destroyer of civilizations. In 1930, an eruption destroyed 13 villages near the base of the mountain. Other major eruptions occurred in 1872, 1822, and 1786. But none of these compared to the legendary eruption that took place in the year 1006. This is the Mataram Kingdom, the most powerful Indonesian dynasty from 700 BC to 1000 BC. Using the fertile soil caused by the lava flows of Mount Merapi, the Matarams were able to build an agricultural powerhouse. Using the wealth they obtained from this, the Matarams built up an incredibly strong army, temples, and created infrastructure in the region surrounding Mount Merapi, known as Central Java. But during the golden age of the Mataram Kingdom, Merapi erupted. The capital city of Mataram was annihilated by the volcano, and the surviving citizens were forced to move to a new, much smaller capital city. This single event would lead to the downfall of the Mataram Empire. Sedayu is in the same place as Mataram was, except this is 2006, exactly 1,000 years later. Seismic activity at Mount Merapi is increasing rapidly. In March, a bulge is detected in the volcano's cone, signaling that an eruption is imminent. Local authorities issue a warning to the villagers near the base of Mount Merapi. On April 10th, there was a report of lava flowing near the Pasar Bubar village. The alert level for those living near Merapi is raised from a 2 to a 3. Over the next few weeks, the volcano's activity stays the same, and 2,000 more people are evacuated from the villages of Sidorejo and Tegalmuyo. On the 13th of May, the alert level was raised to the maximum of 4. In the upcoming days, more than 25,000 people are evacuated from the populated areas surrounding the volcano. A week passes, and Merapi's seismic activity continues. It appears that the mountain will explode. Hot gases seep from the top of the volcano, accompanied by ash and lava. But as it turned out, the lava wouldn't be what made this eruption deadly. It's May 23rd. A man in the city of Yogyakarta has just woken up when suddenly the ground beneath his feet begins to shake. The roof of his house collapses nearly instantly, and 40 seconds later, the shaking stops. The man emerges from his destroyed home to discover what happened. When he steps outside, he sees that the other houses in his neighborhood have been demolished. It was an earthquake, a 6.4 magnitude monster that just killed 5,700 and left more than 15,000 injured. This earthquake is devastating. It is so intense that the ground beneath some houses liquefies, and in the end, it causes more than $3 billion in damage. Some families will never recover. More villagers near the base of Merapi are evacuated, but the eruption from the volcano itself is minor, causing only 2 fatalities. But this isn't the deadliest eruption of Merapi. In fact, it isn't even close. In late September 2010, the Volcanological Survey of Indonesia noticed that Merapi had begun to see an increase in seismic activity. Multiple deformations began to appear on the side of the volcano. Toxic gases began spewing out of the crater more frequently than normal, and most notably, earthquakes. Earthquakes near a volcano are often a sign that magma below the surface is moving. As molten rock rises beneath the surface, it pushes against solid rock, causing fractures and vibrations. If these vibrations are large enough, they can be felt as earthquakes. The more frequent these earthquakes become, the more pressure is building underground. Mount Merapi sits in a place where two huge tectonic plates meet. One plate, called the Indo-Australian Plate, is slowly being pushed under another plate, called the Eurasian Plate. This process is called subduction. As the lower plate sinks deeper into the earth, it releases water into the hot rock below it. This water helps melt the rock, turning it into magma. Magma has less mass than the surrounding solid rock, so it rises. As it moves, it shakes the ground, changes the shape of the volcano, and releases gases. When too much pressure builds up, the magma reaches the surface and the volcano erupts. This is what volcanologists at the base of Mount Merapi were observing. By early October 2010, the warning signs grew stronger. Earthquakes became more frequent and more powerful. The volcano's summit slowly swelled outward like a balloon filling with air. Thick white smoke and toxic gases rose higher into the sky each day. Instruments showed that the magma was rising fast. On October 20th, Indonesian officials raised Merapi's alert level to its highest stage. Evacuation orders were sent out to tens of thousands of people living nearby. This is Japo, one of the villagers who escaped from the base of Mount Merapi. Everything was scary. The sound was very scary. The sound was like... I was terrified and scared. During the eruption, we borrowed a motorbike to carry even 4 or 5 people. If you fell off the motorbike or had an accident, no one helped. It was every person for themselves. Sirens sound through villages. Police and volunteers go door to door, urging families to leave. Some people packed quickly. Others hesitated. Many older residents remembered that previous eruptions had been smaller. They believed that Merapi would calm down. But it didn't. On October 26, 2010, Mount Merapi erupted with an intensity rarely ever seen in the world's deadliest volcanoes. A massive explosion blasted hot gas and ash into the air, instantly turning the sky night and making breathing nearly impossible. Blistering hot clouds of toxic gases, called pyroclastic flows, raced down the slopes of the volcano at terrifying speeds. These clouds were hotter than 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit and moved faster than a car on the highway. Nothing in their path could outrun them. Villages near the summit were hit within minutes. One of the victims was Mbah Merijan, the volcano's longtime spiritual guardian. He had refused to leave his post, believing that it was his duty to protect the mountain and his people. He was later found among the victims of the eruption, becoming a symbol of devotion and the cost of waiting too long. Ash fell from the sky, and survivors fled into darkness and confusion. Some carried children on their backs. Others guided relatives by hand. Many escaped with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Indonesian farmer Ari Sutikno was a month away from harvesting his rice crop when Mount Merapi buried it under a layer of hot ash. Not only did the volcano bury his rice paddy, but it also destroyed his entire life savings. When interviewed by the Taipei Times, Sutikno said, "My paddy was my only source of income, but now it's gone." Emergency shelters filled with evacuees. Schools, sports halls, and tents became temporary homes. Families slept on thin mats, unsure when or if they could ever return. And Merapi was not finished. As ash began to settle on the side of the volcano, dust and debris began to combine with moisture in the air above. This caused heavy downpours, which raked the side of Merapi. The downpours softened the ash on the side of the mountain, eventually forming avalanches of mud, ash, and molten rock called lahars. They raced down the sides of Merapi at over 60 miles an hour and behaved like wet concrete. They demolished everything in their paths. The worst of these occurred on January 23, 2011, along the eroded banks of the Puta River. Mudflows destroyed a 60-meter section of highway between the Magelang and Yogyakarta. Hundreds of homes near the river were destroyed, forcing 5,000 people to flee and causing 3 fatalities. The farmers, who had already been devastated by the volcanic ash and lava, were affected even more by the lahars. A rice farmer named Perdima was just 5 days away from harvesting a bountiful crop of rice when her paddy was demolished by a lahar. The loss was devastating. She tried desperately to save her crop, shoveling mud and volcanic ash from atop the paddy, but the efforts were futile. All the money I invested here has gone. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't have any idea where I can find money to start over again. Over the next several weeks, the volcano continued to erupt again and again. Each explosion sent new ash clouds into the air. Rivers filled with volcanic debris and mud flows continued. By early November, the eruptions had reached their peak. The largest blast sent ash more than 10 miles into the sky. Airports closed. Entire regions were covered in gray dust. Apart from the flashlights of rescue crews, Merapi was shrouded in a cloud of total darkness. More than 350 people lost their lives during the eruption. Hundreds were injured. Over 350,000 people were forced to leave their homes. Recovery was slow and painful. Homes were buried in ash. Fields were destroyed, and livestock was lost. Children struggled with fear and trauma long after the eruptions ended. But slowly, life returned. Over 2,000 teenagers volunteered to help rebuild the villages destroyed by Merapi. Using donations generated through social media posts, they provided victims with everyday items such as blankets, clothes, and even pillows. In order to help children deal with trauma, volunteers told stories and organized games. The same volcanic ash that caused so much destruction also made the soil fertile once again. Crops were replanted, villages were rebuilt, and everything seemed normal. Until Merapi erupted again. On January 4th, 2021, the destroyer of civilizations awakened once more. Without warning, explosions echoed across the slopes of Mount Merapi, sending ash and gas high into the sky. For the people living below, the danger was immediate. Authorities moved quickly. Evacuation orders were issued across the Yogyakarta region, and emergency crews worked to move families away from the volcano's base. Sirens sounded. Roads are filled with cars, motorcycles, and buses carrying people to safety, but then Merapi quieted, and many elders believed the eruption to be over. But it wasn't. This eruption was the most powerful of the year. Massive clouds rose above the volcano, visible from miles away. Ash darkened the sky, and once again, the people living in Merapi's shadow were reminded that the mountain decides the rules. Yet the people of Java rebuilt. They returned, and they continued to live beneath the mountain, not because they ignored its danger, but because Merapi is a part of who they are. Merapi is actually erupting right now. As of January 20th, the alert level was at a 3. So feel free to check that out. The link is in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.